it's been a few months since I talked about how Tower of Fantasy is doing in terms of growth, financials, popularity. I recently talked about how Punishing Gray Raven was doing, Blue Archive was doing, Arknights was doing. So naturally, this was coming. Now, I want to preface this by stating I do have a dedicated video on my thoughts on whether you should actually play Tower of Fantasy in 2023. The TLDW is, yes, you should definitely give it a try because I think it's in a pretty good state right now. I actually kind of dislike how in 3.2 there's just so much ball collection going on, but outside of that, I still think the game is a pretty decent game, and I urge you to go ahead and check out this video. This is a perfect time to play the game because version 3.3 is releasing globally on October 24th, but even with the anticipation of 3.3, even with how much better 3.0, 3.1, and 3.2 were than 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, etc., the game is still declining. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the financials. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the popularity, the stats across every social platform that we can, and compare them to how they were doing just a few months ago. First and foremost, the Tower of Fantasy subreddit. Here is a look at the comments posted per day. In October 2022, there were thousands of comments being made per day, and that makes sense. The game had just launched in August, I think, of 2022. Looking at just June 2023, though, which was just a few months ago, there were still hundreds of comments made per day, 200, 300, 400. Going to October, however, we can see a significant decline in activity. 30 comments, 18, 15, 20, 18, 14. Evidently, the Reddit has very little in terms of activity. That is one sign that the game is in decline. Nobody is talking about anything. This is further made apparent just looking at the threads and looking at how many upvotes they have. 17, and then all the ones posted in the last hour have none. This one from 2 hours ago, 2, none, 1, 2. I mean, but you know, that is just one singular platform. Let's go ahead and take a look at their Twitter. Just 200,000 followers. Let's see, the most recent tweet, 600 likes, 200, 600, 300, 400, 200, 400. So admittedly, those aren't bad stats, but what I want to do here is I actually want to compare this to a couple other gacha games. But before that, I want to look at the financials here. So I have a video on my channel. Every single month I report on the 20 most popular games of each respective month. So here is October. I strongly urge you to go ahead and check that out if you're interested in a list of which gacha game, because this right here doesn't list every gacha game. It lists whatever this person actively tracks, but I urge you to go ahead and take a look at this video because there are games listed here that are not listed here. The most popular games pretty much make upwards of $20 million. Fate Grand Order 20, Nikkei 30, Genshin 36, Uma Musume 36, Honkai Star Rail 40. We have Dokkan Battle at 21. We have Azure Lane at 2.7, Blue Archive at 1.8, Arknights at 1.5, Tower of Fantasy all the way down here at 800,000 only, just ever so slightly above Ether Gazer, ever so slightly above Punishing Gray Raven, which made 700,000. So I want to go ahead here and compare the stats on Twitter to some of the stats of the other games. Before we check any additional socials out though, I want to take a moment here to thank our incredible patrons over on Patreon who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this on a variety of different games every single day. You guys are awesome. Azure Lane's Twitter, we'll go ahead and compare that first. Azure Lane is making 2.7 million, 1,000 likes, 1,200, 2,500, 11. Okay, don't want to look at that image. This image is 7,500. I'm not going to show that because it's a little bit not safe for work. 4,500, almost 5,000, 2.5. So this is a fairly active Twitter. So okay, that Punishing Gray Raven was actually for Japan. The global Punishing Gray Raven is only making 500,000. So Tower Fantasy's making 800,000, Punishing Gray Raven's making 500,000. Let's go ahead and compare Punishing Gray Raven's Twitter, which actually has less followers than Tower Fantasy's Twitter. Tower Fantasy again was averaging 600, 200, 300, 400, 200 likes per post. 700, 1,000, 3,000, 1,200, 750, 1,100, 3,500, 1,400, 2,000. Once again, another very active Twitter. So comparatively to its competition, the Twitter for Tower Fantasy is actually fairly inactive. The subreddit for Tower Fantasy, fairly inactive. Revenue for Tower Fantasy. Okay, and before people start attacking me saying, but this is only for mobile. Yeah, this is actually just for mobile. I don't know how much PC makes. PC might make the same amount mobile makes. It might make 10 times what mobile makes. I can't say. What I can say is that every app tracking platform online reports Tower Fantasy making roughly between $700,000 to $900,000 in the month of September 2023. And as you can see across every major social platform, out of the couple we've checked, activity levels for the game are down. They have been in a state of decline every single month, with September being the lowest point it has been at ever. And as good as 3.3 looks with the waifus that are present in 3.3, trust me, all the mommies that are coming are well worth starting if you have not already started the game. Despite the incredible looking characters that are coming and the continued expansion of Domain 9, the game just doesn't seem to be attracting new players, and the game does not seem to be capable of retaining the players that it has, even though it did launch onto PS4 and PS5, or was it just PS5 recently? Now, earlier this year, I did say that I was going to be surprised if Tower Fantasy managed to make it to 4.0. I do think that I was incorrect there. I genuinely think Tower Fantasy will in fact make it to 4.0. I just don't think that the game is going to ever really see much of, if any, kind of increase in popularity or earnings, which is a shame because 3.0 really did a number on the game and really turned, I think, the game around in a positive direction. And despite all the drama that Hara was embroiled in for the first several months of the Chinese launch and then the global launch, I think they don't really have many, if any, issues these days. And if the game launched like this back in August of 2022, I think this would have been a very big competitor for Genshin Impact. Unfortunately, it took us literally over a year to get to a good stable point in the game's life, or a good stable point in the game itself in terms of content, in terms of quality, and just not enough people really care anymore. Again, if you're interested, I do have a video on Tower Fantasy, on my general thoughts and everything really you need to know about the game going into it. I urge you to check that out. Now, if Tower Fantasy isn't something you're interested in, absolutely no problem. I got you covered for 2 different videos on screen right now that might be of more interest to you.